have about 40 minutes worth of content. The key things, if you have questions, please click the upper go to webinar on the left side, and the questions at the very bottom. So I'm sorry for the delay. We're Netwoven. We've gotten a chance to be fortunate to work with many of these customers. We've been here since 2001, and we work with customers across the U.S. A lot of the areas that we cover are primarily in Office 365, SharePoint. We're doing a lot of BPM and migration services, so you'll see some of those solutions today. We're fortunate to have Rajesh Agadi to join us as a principal consultant. He's been leading a lot of our development here in ECM and SharePoint. He's worked with many of our large customers, and we're excited to have him join in the presentation. We also have one of our close partners, Brad Orlick, who's an Nintex technical evangelist over the last 10 years. He's done a lot of information architecture and Fortune 500 solutions, and he genuinely brings a unique technical and business background for the presentation. Brad, are you on the line? So Kelly, are you able to cover this? I don't see Brad on the line. Well, we'll go ahead and I apologize for this, but anyway, we're fortunate to team up with Nintex, a worldwide leader of software and cloud services. I think today you'll see quite a few of their solutions that they've been able to work with us and many other customers. You'll see there's lots of customers and partners that are using this. We're fortunate again. I don't know if we've got Kelly or Brad on the call, but they've been a recent winner for the Apps Awards for People Choice, Most Downloaded, Most Interesting. They've got lots of research on their site. It's been actually a highlight to look at some of the research to help us guide with our customers. And just recently they were named by Gartner as a cool vendor. So it's very cool. We're glad to have them as part of our webinar. Not only have they worked with us and some of our customers here in the Bay Area, but they've got a lot of the customers across the world. Here are some examples of the different areas that they focus on. Well, we have, for one early registrant, we have a winner. So we want to thank you for registering early, and hopefully, Rashi, you can let us know who the winner is for today.
Yeah, it's Jim Reed from Excelidas. So congratulations, Jim.
Oh, good. Congratulations, Jim. Yeah, we'll send this out to you, and thank you again for registering early. Here's a quick agenda for today. Our goal is to talk a little bit about some of the market trends, kind of outline what are some of the strategic processing challenges we see. We'll try to show you a little of the use cases for forms and workflows. Obviously, there's many of these solutions already in production, but we do think there's some of these unique opportunities for this next generation of forms and workflows. Along with that, though, we're going to try to highlight some of the challenges and some of the lessons learned that we've had. As part of that also, we will have some demonstration, talk a little bit about what some of the Nintex products and how that fits into the overall solution. And then we'll wrap up, and then we'll have some Q&A. Just some background. Some of the people here, obviously based on a couple surveys here, the CDW Cloud Report, obviously technology directors are still making a lot of decisions to move to the cloud. 39% are actually implementing or maintaining a solution. But we are seeing a shift. Obviously, a lot more executives are more involved in the decision, much more directly engaged in looking at the technology. Even though a lot of the customers we work with are using Office 365, they're looking at more of a hybrid solution. Those on-premise deployments obviously can have a lot of content, and we're looking at, and a lot of the work we do is combining that with a cloud solution, and so you'll find a lot of hybrid deployments. Some of the concerns, though, still about security. Obviously there's a lot of applications that are using the cloud, but there's still concern in making sure that there's a secure environment, and it's a little bit more complex. So we work with customers to make sure that security is installed. Performance, obviously a second concern, and then obviously looking at multi-tenant environments and what are those issues. So that's kind of the background on why people are moving to the cloud. I want to talk a little bit about how Nintex is looking at this solution and what they're seeing from their customers. Brad, are you on the call?
Looks like he's joining Walt.
Okay.
Should be there. There you go.
Good.
Hi,
Hey, Brad.
this is Brad from Nintex. How are you?
Good. Welcome.
All right, thank you, everyone. I apologize, some technical difficulties on the audio side of things, but I've been here, and I'm a captive audience and participant, so let's jump right into this piece. So the strategic process challenges that we're kind of seeing out in the marketplace right now is that, approximately 75,000 of Fortune 500s have SharePoint, so that kind of equals out to about 68,000 or so installations of SharePoint. So SharePoint adoption is strong, and that's fantastic. And what that really is turning into is Microsoft is really trying to get people into the cloud as well and start offering the platform as a service, because it's a great platform to have, and just the nature of the cloud and the interconnectivity and the lack of infrastructure support issues that you need to have are really the way to go. That said, we're seeing that growth, that dramatic growth, and it's fantastic. But what we're also seeing is that 70% of enterprises are starting to sync up between other content platforms. And by 2016, Microsoft is basically telling us that on average between SharePoint and whatever other repositories in the cloud, Google, so on and so forth, we're seeing a huge adoption of those platforms, but a lack of ability to kind of bring them all together. And that's really what Nintex can help you do with your SharePoint environment. So, hot on the heels of the recent announcement from Microsoft that InfoPath is going to be retired, there's been a lot of questions in the marketplace about a replacement, even though the product will be supported until 2023. That's fantastic, but no new features or functionalities will be added to it. Microsoft essentially decided to leverage their existing investments in services such as Excel services and Word automation services and kind of, take away this very complex and specialized tool for building all this functionality and instead relying on the other services and technologies that they've built as well as their partners. So we'll go ahead and detail that in the next slide a little bit more detail as far as what exactly Microsoft is up to. So what Microsoft is essentially telling us is that for the various types of documents that InfoPath supported, there's going to be a few different replacement scenarios. Essentially, we're going to see things like Excel surveys. We're going to see list forms transformed into a product that's going to be called Fossil or Forms on SharePoint Lists. We're also going to see structured documents. Instead of being InfoPath forms that are stored as a structured documents, we're going to see Word documents in their place. And then as far as app forms, we're going to see things like Access and custom SharePoint development. Now, really the crux of all of this is much of it is still up in the air as far as timetables when we'll see some of these things. Some of the functionality exists today in the form of Excel services and Word, but things like Fossil have yet to ship, and we just know it's coming at some point. So really, we need something to address these things today, including the mobile story, which there really still isn't a story from Microsoft as far as how mobile devices will be integrated into this SharePoint, this ever-evolving SharePoint world.
Well, thanks, Brad. There's a lot of different technologies involved. Maybe you can we can talk a little bit about what some of the expectations are. I know, Rajesh, you get a lot of these questions, so.
Go ahead and pick the next one, Walt.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Walt. So I think what we see is based on where we stand with the announcements and looking at what is the expectation from the industry for the workflow platform. We want to be able to have all the workflows and form solutions support your on-prem SharePoint installations. It needs to support the Office 365, and we are also seeing a new trend with the hybrid scenarios. Go ahead and click next, Walt. And we also want to be able to support the integration. Many organizations have their internal line of business applications, and then we are observing more and more people are trying to integrate with the cloud services, such as all the social services and for Salesforce.com and sort of that nature products. In addition, generally we want to be able to support both your internal users and external users, including partners and customers and so forth. Next one. And then finally, I think we are also want to be able to support all our existing desktop scenarios, all the tablet form factors, including mobile. So if you see, this is the expectation for the next generation workflow and forms platform. Let's evaluate what it means to us from a strategy standpoint. On the bottom line, if you look at the challenges, workflows are complicated. They have a lot of complexity with the process they need to integrate with. They need to work with a lot of variety of users. We just captured internal users, external users, their identity and so forth. And we're observing all the evolving the external cloud data services now. Next. And there's again challenges with the end user devices as the new set of mobile and tablets are coming up, and the ability to collect data offline and then submit back to your system, and then data integration. It's a complex situation. So what it really means is that the form and workflow works, it has evolved right now. So there is a big challenge with the current technologies. Next, Walt. So I think really, if you look at a strategy, this should be your selection criteria for the workflows and forms. The platform needs to be simplistic. It should support a simple designer tool. It should be simple configuration based. It means we don't need to code for the platform. All right, next. And then it should be easily transportable. We had in the past SharePoint workflow platforms, it was difficult to move from one platform to another, although it has improved. But from a strategy standpoint, we should be able to easily port from your development to stage to production platforms. It should be supported on on-prem as well as cloud, and it should be ready now. And next. It should be a lightweight. It should not require an additional servers. It should be able to support a broader form of integration with all the different scenarios we just talked about. Next. And more as SharePoint 2013 and the Office 365 is supporting and getting more into the apps story, it should be, the platform should be apps and store model ready and should support necessary apps there. And overall, it should also have a simplified licensing for customers to manage. The bottom line is it should reduce your total cost of ownership and eventually should provide you your return on investment. Next. Well, so it's really, if you break that down, on-prem, you want to be able to support, your workflows and forms and then still work with your internal line of business applications. And the next one, if you look at the Office 365, same story, you want to be able to equally execute your workflows and forms, as well as the upcoming Yammer integration, you want to be able to deal with it. And the cloud, I separated cloud, it's just if you see there's, Salesforce.com and similar services, an array of social networking platforms. And then finally, on the application delivery side, if you look at, support for external users, same thing, PC, tablet, phone support, as well as ability to perform, your form filling in offline mode. This is how your workflow platform should look like. Let's look at, what it means to us from a solution-wise. Next. So if you see on-prem, all the same platforms, there is the Nintex provides a workflow platform that is consistent, works across your on-prem and Office 365, works the Nintex Forms product line, works across in conjunction with the Nintex workflow across both on-prem and Office 365. And then we have a Nintex store that provides the apps that you can buy and right away integrate with your workflow and form solutions. You also have a Nintex Live, which works across on-prem, Office 365, and the cloud. and provides the messaging services bus, so you can integrate across all these platforms. And then as well as there's the last click, there you go. So for the remote, you also have Nintex Mobile, where you can actually download the free app for your Android devices, iPhone, iPads, and then actually submit your forms and then submit your forms offline and participate in the workflow process. The Nintex Live also provides you external access with your internal on-prem or Office 365 workflows, and we'll see a demo in a minute. So this is the word, and then I will hand it off to Brad from here.
Thanks, Rajesh. So yeah, so what's really the solution, and how does Nintex really bring all of these different domains together? Because in all essential truth, an InfoPath form is merely just a shell, and any form for that matter is really just a shell for a process, because there's something going on behind it. And we've fully embraced the idea that the form is simply a front end for a lot of complex business logic that you have to implement in your environments. So go ahead, next slide. So essentially there's three real different types of forms. If you want to just go ahead and next, just so we can see all three, and I'll speak to each one. So essentially the way we look at it is a form can be an interface for the workflow itself. It can also be that data UI that we need to leverage to access some kind of back end. And it can also handle structured documents as well. So basically, between Nintex Workflow and Nintex Forms, the suite will essentially replace all of the functionality that one would find inside of InfoPath, as well as a whole lot more, in the sense that we can cover our mobile users, we can do offline work in the environment, and we can really drive adoption through an easy-to-use interface. Because the challenges are many, but we definitely want to drive it in an easy and consumable fashion across people, positions, and platforms. Let's go ahead and hit the next slide, please. So again, just to drive home the point, what we're really talking about is three discrete domains or pieces of the stack, and those would essentially be comprised of the people that are engaged in your particular organizations doing specific tasks and meeting objectives. We're also talking about the process and the methods which they're actually going through to determine and reach those outcomes. And then lastly, we're speaking about content. We really have all of this content, and again, it could be spread across multiple back-end repositories. So we need to have a way of bringing that all together. So let's go ahead and advance the slide. So again, similar to the slide we just saw, how do we line up with those various areas of the stack? Well, essentially, Nintex Forms and Nintex Mobile really address the people part, because they're the ones who are actually needing to look at the information and input data into the system. The process portion is actually going to be Nintex Workflow that does all the heavy lifting, line of business integration, has the additional actions that you can download from the Nintex Live store, so on and so forth. So again, that's really the crux that is at the center of our workflow universe. And lastly, we have our Nintex Live, which again allows for that extensibility and integration options going forward. Let's go ahead and hit next. And actually, I'll simply state one more thing about Nintex Live. Nintex Live is not just one thing in and of itself. Essentially, it's our store, and it's a way for you to find new ways and get new actions inside of your environment so you can build out the platform even further. But it's also used by the Forms product as a message brokering service. So if you would like to essentially give remote users access to submitting forms to your SharePoint environment without the added expense of building out extranets or building reverse proxies and investing in all of these infrastructure techniques, we can actually unburden you and help you with that by simply carrying a support contract. So now let's talk about the real world before we get into the demo, just briefly. Actually, we'll hop back just real quick. So essentially, we have customers in the real world. Specifically, BGC is a mining organization. They they had many challenges that they needed to address, specifically around the onboarding process and dealing with HR processes that were taking a lot of time to bring, summer interns on board and then actually get them provisioned inside their systems. So what they ended up actually doing was building an Nintex form, publishing it out to the web. It's actually hosted, I'll show it to you momentarily. It's hosted on their website, and what happens is when a candidate goes in and fills out the form and submits it, it actually is retrieved by the SharePoint environment, and once that data is inside the SharePoint environment, a workflow can kick off and do a myriad of different things, such as provision users inside of Active Directory, create Exchange mailboxes, etc., tying into an HR system in the background to create a new record. All of those things could be accomplished by a single workflow without a lot of, well, potentially without any human intervention. So a lot of possibilities to really cut out a lot of busy work for individuals inside of your organization. So let's go ahead and hop over. Nope, go.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say I'll let Walt kind of speak for a second, then we'll hop over to the demo piece.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Hey, we did get some feedback, and I guess two things. One, if you didn't hear my intro, I apologize for the issues we're having with GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar. We did get some feedback that some folks can't see the slides, so we have been trying to work with GoToWebinar support on those issues. So I apologize. Hopefully it's been resolved, but we're still working on those issues. So thanks, Brad. I know you're going to do this demo.
Excellent. Thanks, Walt. So what we're looking at right now is that form that's actually published out to the web. It's a Nintex form that the customer has actually gone ahead and customized to meet the overall theme and feel of their website. And again, it's really worth pointing out as a lot of organizations move to various web-based content management systems like Sitecore, some of those products out there don't really handle things like forms very well, and again, trying to get that data from that publicly facing website into the SharePoint environment where people are actually working can be a great challenge. So as we can see, they've tailored graphically the form, and they're capturing a fair amount of metadata from the submissions on this site. And again, the ability for Nintex Live to broker this data back to the SharePoint environment, in a real-world scenario, the previous organization I was with rolled out Sitecore and actually had to custom dev because they weren't leveraging Nintex forms. They actually had to build a custom form solution to get that data back into SharePoint where Nintex workflow would do that. And this would have saved that organization about $70,000 in development, which would have paid for the product itself. So again, it's a powerful product, and it really gives the ability to the users to be empowered to save their organizations a lot of time and money. So now let's talk about how we actually do all this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hop over into a SharePoint 2013 environment, and what we're looking at right now is essentially just a couple of lists that we've established. I know we're kind of short on time, so I'm going to run through this relatively quickly, but I want to show you the power of our product and how we can really give a very solid experience to the end user, as well as allowing the end users to build out their own solutions without developing custom code. So again, a couple of lists here. I've got a request for leave list, and I've got a shared calendar inside of my organization. So typically when a user would want to request time off in this instant, they would just go ahead and click on a new item. They're greeted with a standard SharePoint form, which is not easily modified, and it's pretty vanilla, and we can't really do things like hiding specific columns for validation reasons, so on and so forth, which we could do in InfoPath, but we make it even easier. So we'll just simply go through the scenario. We'll say, it's my birthday. And it's worth noting, too, I'm actually logged in as Eden Stafford, who is an Nintex employee, and we'll actually see this entire approval process from both the entry experience as Eden and the approver experience, which will be Brett Campbell. So we'll go ahead and just pick out a couple of dates here. We'll be at the beach, of course. That's a great place to spend our birthday. So now, typically workflows can fire off in several different ways. We can actually have site-level workflows that run on a scheduled basis. We can have workflows that actually kick off when items are created on lists or libraries, or they can actually be started manually. In this particular scenario, I'll simply start it manually so we can kind of get an idea of what's happening. One thing you'll notice right off the bat in our product is we actually give you a visual representation of what the workflow looks like. So essentially our workflows are a collection of various actions doing things and reaching a specific endpoint. So let's go ahead and start this workflow.
Hey, Brad, while you're doing that, somebody did ask if you could create cascading drop-downs like country, state, city.
Yes, oh, absolutely. Yes, you can do that. And actually, we actually have a video. I believe we have a video in our YouTube channel, so that's actually a great resource. So as you start getting your feet wet with the Nintex product suite, between our connect.nintex.com community portal where we have user forums as well as documentation and how-tos, we also have a YouTube channel where you can watch how-to videos as well. And I believe Emily in our one office actually created a video on creating that a city-state relationship in a drop-down with our product. So yes, absolutely doable and much less painful than doing external list lookups inside of SharePoint. So what you'll see right here is I actually received an instant message from our system letting me know that my request was received. So that's actually one point to make, is the fact that our product can build a little bit more dynamic end-user communication into the product. So we don't have to just send notifications out via email. We can actually send them out via text message or integration with Link and Office Communication Server. So again, this is opens up a lot of possibilities for the way we interact with our user base. So let's go ahead with the magic of technology. We'll hop over to the way Brett sees the world. So essentially what I've opened up is Brett's desktop. Now, Brett's not in the office very often, so he might not actually have his desktop in front of him. So there's several different ways that he may interact with this specific task that we've given him. Now, just to make this a little bit more legible for everyone on the call, I'll simply zoom in a little bit. So essentially, with our workflow tool, we can easily customize things like communications and basically bind all the metadata, be it from internally inside of SharePoint, which things like the initiator's name and the column data related to the type of leave, and also those leave and return dates. But we can also do things like reach into the HR system, which actually has my amount of hours of vacation that I have. So we can actually do a web service call in the background, unbeknownst to the user, and pull that data in and again make it actionable inside of our environment and our process. So typically to respond to a task like this, we could do it a couple different ways. We could just simply click on a link, and again, if we were at our desktop, we would simply be greeted with a form. In this case, we've gone ahead and created a more attractive Nintex form to actually modify the approval decision and submit it back to the system. We again can give you that visual representation of where the workflow is currently in progress. So actions that have been executed successfully simply become green, and we notice now that Ask Manager is a decision point and it's yellow, and we're currently held up right there. So that's my first way I could respond to this task. But again, in the vein of trying to build in some additional flexibility for our users that are on the go, what we could do as well is we can actually go back into Outlook, and again, because Brett might actually be, well, I wouldn't say that he would be on the golf course, because I'm sure he'd be in his office diligently working away on a lot of different things, but by chance if he was, we actually have a feature of our product called Lazy Approval, and what Lazy Approval, or if you so choose, executive approval, you could simply use this as a means to reply to the task and essentially determine the decision by just sending an email. So what Brett could do, say on his mobile device where his email is forwarded to, he could simply type in approved. And the term store can be modified. So if there's something that would make more sense to a particular business process, this could be highly customized as well. But essentially, Brett could go ahead and reply, approved, and this task would become approved inside of the system. So that's something that Nintex gives you through the lazy approval process.
Hey, Brad, just quickly, Walt, you know, that's really been a real popular thing for a lot of our customers, the ability to handle it on any device and respond. So that's actually a good highlight. One thing that did come up is the ability to customize the forms. Can you just speak to it a little bit? I know we went through that pretty quickly, but people are just asking how flexible the form development is.
Absolutely. So basically to customize a form, we integrate directly into the SharePoint ribbon. So we would simply go to our lister library. We can also build forms against content types, but essentially we could simply click on Nintex Forms, And through the use of templates, we actually, if we encounter a specific list or library that has a standard SharePoint form, Nintex forms would simply digest the various values of the columns that are on that list or library and apply them to the global template. So again, this really saves you time in the sense that it can automatically generate a form with a single click.
Great.
So,
and I suppose you can also extend this through jQuery or other things, or is it, is there some videos they can look at for that?
Absolutely. So again, going back to our YouTube channel, we have a fair amount of video information that you can actually sit through and check out and see how to do that. But yes, anything that we can't do in our various controls, which we have a wide breadth of various controls and functionalities that you can build into the forms natively, but if there was something that you wanted to do to extend the product even further, we will allow you to do that very easily through the use of custom JavaScript. So again, where we try and focus on the end users building out solutions without coding, we also do cater to developers extensively in the sense that anything that they would like to do to make the product more powerful or do more, they can easily do that themselves.
Thanks. I know it's been helpful for us. We've been able to extend it a lot, so thank you.
Absolutely. So what I wanted to hop back to briefly, just to finish out our scenario and really highlight the functionalities that the mobile component really gives to us in the sense of publishing out our forms to a mobile device. Nintex Mobile is a standalone native application for iOS, Windows 8, and as well as Windows 8 Mobile. Android should be shipping this month. So again, you can download a discrete app and get things like your tasks and your forms on your mobile device even outside of your network. So again, going back to the way that Brett looks at the world, again, this task may be something that he doesn't want to respond to this specific task via email. He actually can use the discrete Nintex mobile application, which I can show you very quickly, and you can see the power of the product on a live device. I actually have a Windows 8 phone in my hand, and I will go ahead and share out my screen so you can take a look at what this looks like. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is actually my Windows 8 phone, and as you can see dead center next to the handsome gentleman is Nintex Mobile. So I'll go ahead and hit Nintex Mobile. And this is a live view of my Nintex Mobile app. Now I'm logged in as Brett just to show you that experience that Brett would have at his hands. So essentially what we have here is all of the tasks that are currently assigned to me inside of the SharePoint environment. We can aggregate those right inside the app. So again, Eden had requested that leave, and as you can see today, Brett has a new task. So we could simply go through and approve or reject this task. And again, without being a developer for a mobile device, we can actually do this simply by creating a form inside of our SharePoint environment. So again, very, very powerful stuff. We can simply submit that. And again, if I was connected to my environment directly, it would simply traverse the network and go right back into the SharePoint farm. Or if we're disconnected from the network, we could simply have that sit inside of our outbox until connectivity was restored to the SharePoint environment. Or we can leverage Nintex Live to actually do that offline and submit it back without having to have, again, that exposed infrastructure in place.
Great.
So as we're going to see, as we log back into our SharePoint environment, Eden's sitting at his desk. He's actually received an instant message letting him know that his annual leave request was approved by Brett. So simply hopping back over into our leave portal, we can see that Nintex has gone ahead and updated the leave shared calendar, and my request has been approved. So again, all of those things were done automatically via the workflow. So to simply just show you the workflow designer, everything in our workflow designer is drag and drop. So essentially complex workflows are very easy to build with a minimal amount of training for our users. Typically, iteration can be done very easily as well. So as you map out a business process and decide to make changes to those workflows, you can easily do things like moving a process around inside of your workflow. As we've spoken about our integration with other line of business applications and other content repositories, as you can see inside of our actions that we've pulled down from Nintex Live through that store, We can do things like adding the ability to collaborate with an outside agency that relies on Google Drive. So we can simply take a document that we've iterated through and actually upload that to Google Drive, all inside of the workflow. We can also do things like pulling information from an Office 365 tenant. So it doesn't matter if you're on-prem, if you are in the cloud, or any mix thereof, we could definitely help you integrate all of those different platforms together very easily.
Hey, Brad, not to rush through this because there's actually a lot of questions. I'm probably not going to be able to answer them all, but this is a real differentiator. I think just in our work with your company and your product, it's really been a great tool to certainly develop and then hand over to end users and not end users, sorry, users at the customers. Can you talk a little bit about how the differentiators between your product and some of your competitors, because that's come up in a couple of questions here.
Absolutely. So basically, really differentiators between our products and some of the other products on the market or the tools available from Microsoft directly would be the fact that we're available right now. These functions and features are available to you today. You don't have to wait for something to be released. We're shipping today. We're constantly iterating. We are, without a doubt, between the continuity between our design interfaces and just the ease of configuration of our products, we are the world leader in the ease of building workflows by business as well as IT users. So really workflow for everyone, everywhere. And then beyond that, just the extensibility into the cloud and to our mobile devices that other products out there on the market really don't do that the same way that we do. And even if functionality, they can do things similar, I personally think they don't do them as well. So,
and I know you guys have been investing quite a bit in the mobile devices. I think iOS is available and Android are coming along.
iOS is available today, so all of your Apple products between iPads, iPhones, and the like, that is available today, that standalone app. Windows 8 Desktop as well as Windows 8 Phone is available today, and again, Android is shipping this month, so we will have a discrete standalone app for Android coming very soon.
Pretty exciting.
Absolutely. So if I could at least show off one other functionality that I think everyone will find really exciting is the story that we really tell with that Nintex Live infrastructure that's up in the cloud and not on premise where we have to manage it and maintain it and pay for people to support it. And that would be our ability to take those internal SharePoint forms and expose them to the world. Now, we could get into the security. Suffice it to say, we actually have a white paper about security, so how we encrypt the data, how we actually handle the data. We can share that with you offline. But suffice it to say, it is secure. It is relying on the Microsoft Azure platform on the back end. But again, with a single click, we can really take an internal form, such as our leave request here. This, again, could be just like BCG, and it could be a contact us form that we don't want to architect out in our web-facing environment. So what we could simply do is click on Live Settings inside of our familiar ribbon interface inside of the Nintex Form Designer, and we have the ability to publish to Nintex Live. We can shorten the URLs, and then again, we can actually do things like mapping specific accounts using OAuth, so we can actually have your Windows Live ID bound to your internal SharePoint credential, so you could restrict who can access these forms outside of your environment. But in this case, again, with this single click, I just saved my organization $70,000 by saying I'm allowing anonymous access to this form. And I can set expiration dates and the like. So I'll simply save this. Now, if I go ahead and publish this form, we'll simply verify all of our publishing settings. And now we have a shortened URL that I'm going to share with everyone, and we can actually have, it's also worth noting, building those additional layouts for those mobile devices is a single click inside of the interface. So before I put the cart in front of the horse, when we're customizing our layouts for those various devices, you don't need to be a programmer or even to know really anything about those devices. We've already given you out of the box the various most popular devices to easily tailor all of your forms for those devices. As you can see, taking the data that's already been pulled from my SharePoint list, we just apply it to various form factors for you. So again, very, very easy to do. So again, we'll simply publish this. Now, Walt, I'm going to go ahead and paste this URL for everyone.
Great.
And this is the interactive portion of the show. So everyone get out your mobile device or on your desktop, go ahead and visit this URL. I'll make this a little bit more legible. So what we're actually looking at is a shortened URL. Please note that this portion on the end, the pathing is actually case sensitive. So in this case, we're just going to ntx.lv/1, L as in Larry, lowercase n as in Nancy, uppercase L as in Larry, the number 1, uppercase L as in Larry, and a lowercase q. So I'll go ahead and leave that on the screen for a minute. But what we implore you to do to see really what we can do with the product, you can visit this. Again, I'm running this particular demonstration on a laptop virtual machine, so I have no infrastructure to support you accessing my SharePoint environment. This is all being done up in the cloud by Nintex Live. So if you go ahead and open that.
I was able to post it in the chat window, so or sorry, the questions window. So I think everybody should have that.
Thank you, Walt, because I was going to try and do that as per my conversation earlier, and I didn't.
That's okay.
So,
no, a lot of
thank you.
A lot of logistics today. This GoToWebinar has not been good. So.
Absolutely. So everyone, go ahead and do that. Just to kind of show you again the mobile story. While we're waiting for those submissions to come in, they'll go ahead and be showing up here in just a minute. But to maybe hop through a couple of other things with the product. There's an analytics component to our product. So again, workflow and process analysis and automation is something that we want to make sure we have some kind of good metrics to collect and analyze to make sure our processes are really better. We offer that inside of the product as well. So again, very, very extensible and helpful. I know time check, we're technically running up on the hour. I can run through that little last demo piece if you would like to see some of the location services, Walt, or we can simply jump over to our Q&A session or whatever you'd like to.
If you don't mind, we might just get to the Q&A, and if people want to stay on, I want to be respectful of their time, even though we've lost a big chunk of time here.
Absolutely.
So,
and
thank
just
you,
to
Brad,
point out,
thanks for your patience.
Not a problem. As we can see, we've already gotten a test submission. So again, these will start trickling in. So we may revisit that at the end.
Yeah, we'll come back right at as we get to the questions and answers. So, well, thank you again, Brad. And I'm just going to switch back and we'll finish this out. Just a few more pieces there.